Okay, so the next thing is elements and attributes. What are elements and attributes? Now here, uh, if we just take the example of this tag, h2 tag, h2 tag and whatever we have written inside, this entire thing makes an element. Similarly, the paragraph tag p and whatever we have written inside, this entire thing makes an element. So a tag with this basically is making an element. So this is an element h2, then this p is an element, then anything we are going to put in these tags are elements. Like these are the questions that are basically asked in an interview. What is an element, and things like that. What is an attribute? What is an element? What are tags? What are attributes? So tags, what are tags? Tags are something. This h2 is a tag, only h2, the closing tag and the opening tag and the closing tag, and whatever is inside it, the entire thing becomes an element. Now what are attributes? Now attributes are something that will be covered along with css, but this is also the question that this is also one of the terms that people might not know much if they're only studying it, but it's always better to know about all the terms. uh, like we can learn a lot about html, we can learn a lot about these things, but unfortunately we do not know about the terms. We are like, okay, that certain thing, once we write this in a particular tag, we are going to get something. What that thing is, that is an element. Now what is an attribute? Here you see meta, and then it says charset, then meta http equiv, then meta name. This thing is basically an attribute. Anything which defines which is inside a tag, or which defines the properties uh, of an element, is basically an attribute. So let's save this as a heading h2, and if I want to add anything, I want to add style to it, I can add style equals to, and then in this I'll type anything. Whatever I type is going to be the style which is given, which would be given to this element. So but how are we are going to write these things? We are going to get to know more about these things in css. So attributes is not actually the topic uh, that can be covered in html, but uh, yeah, attribute is something which is used in an html. So this is where we can write an attribute. So and things like that. We can also give height, heigst, height equals to, and we write any number that will be in the pixels. So let's say if I say 20, it means that 20 pixels is height. I do control s, the 20 pixels would be height. But since we have not learned css, so attributes, how attributes are being used, we are going to get into the depth of it with css, but this was just the basics. So there are two things we have learned. One is attribute, and one is elements. What are elements? Anything inside a tag is an element. This entire thing is an element. And then what is an attribute? Attribute is something that we put in the opening of tag. Like if I'm giving a height, this is how I'm going to write. If I'm giving a width, width width, I want to give a width of 20 as well. So what will happen is that this will be the attribute, and this element will have a height of 20 and width of 20. How we are going to use it, we will see that in the css thing. These are just the basics. We have to learn the basics to know how the entire thing will work.